stuff on Alex. Yeah, an email. Yeah, good to meet you guys. It looks a lot more efficient. Yeah. This is just how it's set up. Yeah, it's looking pretty great. Yeah.
All right, so we will call the meeting to order. And we do not, hooray, ever have to read that statement again. So small moment of celebration. I'm going to turn this over to roll call, but beforehand, I just want to say to everyone, Joshua is not here with his fabulous pink stickies. And I want to acknowledge the last meeting. It's hard. It's just very different tracking, like who wants to be recognized to speak in this environment with the screen and the people in my peripheral vision, et cetera. So please be patient. And if we can try really hard to just follow the, letting me acknowledge and throw something at me if I'm not seeing that you're needing to speak, but don't talk over someone else or talk over me or interrupt. So we've had a great relationship for years now of raising our hands in Zoom. And I noticed that last time, all of us, myself included, started talking over each other a little bit more than we had when we were in the virtual environment. So that keeping that civility moving forward into our group as we learn to know each other in person, I would very much appreciate help with that. All right, I'm going to hand it over to staff for a roll call.
Thank you. And I noticed we do have a couple of members who are remote. And so I'm going to wait till the end to call on those guys just because there are AB 2449 statements we need to get. But I'll start off with Emmett Hopkins, Alex Goodman. And if you can use this for practice with your mic, that'd be great since this is live. Thank you. Dina Allen.
Here.
Joshua Somane is not here today. Kenna Lee.
Here.
Lisa Pierce.
Here.
Sunali Sikon.
Howdy.
Zeno Switnick.
Here.
Diana Rich is not here today. Councilmember Maurer.
Here.
Thank you. And we have two folks attending remotely, Ambrosia Thompson and Debbie Burns.
Present.
And thank you. And just to note that you're both attending. So just to note, if you are going to be attending remotely, please let me know because we do need to track for the Brown Act regulations. But you're both attending via the AB 2449 Just Cause. So thank you. And you do have a quorum.
Yay, great, thank you. So I'm going to review the action items. Joshua so nicely emailed to me, all written out. So Carrie was going to send out the current state rules for remote attendance to the members. If anyone did not receive that, please let me or her know because I believe she did send that out to all of us. Our webpage update discussion and suggestions were tabled to a future meeting, pending outreach and education, bringing that before the committee. Our library sidewalk painting on 624 needs facilitator. That will be discussed when we get to that agenda item. Confirm with Ambrosia whether zero waste sorting is happening at the Apple Blossom Festival. We can discuss that when we get to that agenda item as well. And then Vision Zero proposal description and recommendations tabled to future meeting. That's for transportation. And I have not received a formal proposal yet from you guys, to my knowledge. Okay. Great. So we will move on to comments from the public regarding any items not on the agenda today. Do we have any comments? You are invited to walk up to the podium and speak into the mic at any point if you would like to address the group. I would really love to keep our our flow that we had when we were virtual of really integrating our public members. We have never had a problem other than being Zoom bombed with having too many people in the room. So, you know, we'll make sure we get the formal public comment if that's needed, but also like there's 3 of you, we can integrate you into discussion. You don't have to wait to be called on. Please just raise your hands if you want to participate in anything along the way. Any conflicts of interest from voting members of the committee regarding anything that's on today's agenda? Nope. So we'll move on to our planning department report.
Thank you. And I will ask John to chime in. He was covering, I was out most of last week. But a couple of upcoming items of interest. The council is set to have an interview for Ruby, one of the youth members who have applied to be members of the committee. We do, just as a reminder, have an additional youth, an environmental justice, and the business owner rep, which would replace Debbie, and she would transition to the planning commission rep, are still open until filled. So if you know folks who are interested in that position, any of those positions, that would be great. But council will be interviewing at 5:30 and then discussing appointment on their regular agenda at 6 next Tuesday. They will also be receiving a couple of reports on the RV Village Horizon Shine, as well as the quarterly liaison homeless report. I'm not exactly sure what else might be on there. There's nothing related to climate specifically. Also as a reminder, the budget subcommittee has a number of meetings scheduled this month. Some of them were rescheduled, not for my department or capital improvements, but some of the others. So please check the website for the updated. Those meetings are all posted now. I will note the budget committee has asked us, each department, to reduce their budget. I think pretty much every department by 10%. So that did result in my needing to take out some of the nice to have climate action stuff, like the potential civic spark for next year that we were looking at. I did keep support from Holly and the potential for events and things like that as much as I could, but and then a couple of the zero waste components. But if we do get grants for them, then we would still be able to do those, which I think is hopeful, at least, if not likely. But because Zero Waste Sonoma has been submitting grants to the state to try to help the cities with the funding for those. And then we do have a planning commission meeting this evening. A couple items on that. They're both public hearings, one for First Street for a variance to creek setback for a new home, and the other is use permit for Goatlandia, which is taking over the Smokehouse Barbecue, and actually going to be operating a vegan kitchen, I believe it is.
Yeah.
So a little bit, it's kind of a 180 change from the Smokehouse Barbecue in that regard, and also doing a commissary kitchen to allow others to kind of share in the kitchen and do their smaller local production. And I think that's it. John, did you have any updates? Okay, I think that's it from the planning department this week.
Great, thank you. Sandy, do you have anything was there a question?
I didn't hear, sorry if you already made mention, but we have an equity seat open as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonali. I did not mention that, but you're right. Yep.
I think that the environmental justice is the name of that seat, right?
Yeah, I think that is
It's not
actually
separate
environmental
from
justice /
They're
equity.
together.
So
Yeah, they're
it could
bundled
be
together.
either one. Yep.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Sorry, go, any other questions for planning department?
Yeah, what's the status of that improvement on Palm Avenue at the bottom of the hill that I think was set back? Is there any, maybe I don't quite understand, but there was a project there to improve safety. And I wonder where is that at?
Thank you, Zena, that there was a project, a potential project to make Palm Drive between Main Street and Petaluma one way. And I believe that was kind of came in mid CIP cycle from the former police chief Kilgore. When engineering looked at what it would cost to do that, because that does trigger sidewalk upgrades and some of the other, crosswalks and things like that are required to put in when you touch a street. The cost became such that I believe, and Councilmember Mara, I'm going to ask you to confirm because I was not at that meeting. But I believe council requested that become part of the regular CIP budget at this point, because there are a lot of other streets that were kind of pavement index were in greater need. So it is going to be in the CIP, but it's not being funded at this time. Capital improvement plan, sorry. It's the funding of bigger capital improvements throughout the city.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other
Okay.
questions for planning department? Yeah, go ahead. You can just ask directly. Yeah. That's Carrie and John.
So I'm going to
Planning
ask
Department.
Councilmember, did I get that right?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so the capital improvement plan, and there will be, again, the budget hearings for the future years and the next year of the capital improvement plan, which includes street improvements, park improvements, stormwater, water, sewer, everything that's kind of larger than, like, say, $20,000 is going to be in the capital improvement plan. The budget hearings for those are listed on the website. So you'd be able to kind of catch for that. But yeah, so that project came in not as part of the CIP, but just as a request and an idea. And the council has directed that be incorporated to the capital improvement plan and looked at along with all of the other street improvements that are needed.
So for anybody who wants to hear the full version, that the whole city council meeting is recorded, and there's a lot of discussion about that in the recording.
All right. I think I'm trying to look at you guys on the screen. I think we're ready for council report. Sorry about that. Sandy, go ahead.
Huh.
Used to be part of the meeting.
And I believe that the ecology contract is going to be on April 18th, and I don't know exactly what the council will be asked to do with that. The previous, so probably if I'm wrong, but
Sorry. I believe the Recology contract will be on the April 18th agenda. So I think that's probably part of Zero Waste, which is part of this committee. So am I correct, Tim? Would you like me to talk about this?
That's correct. And I would love if you could explain a little bit. We do have our Zero Waste
Mhm.
member is part of Recology. So
Okay.
I feel like we need a little advice on how to integrate the fact that we're getting public comment, encouraging action on this contract, but our committee member is part of the business that the contract affects, et cetera. So,
Okay, well, the Zero Waste, I am a member of that board. I'm new to it. So I was newly appointed to that board, but they have a committee called the AB 939 Local Task Force. And the committee person, the primary person for that committee, has just resigned. And so we will need to be filling that position. Stephen Zollman is the alternate, and he will fill in for the next meeting, but city staff is going to be working on filling that position because it needs to come before council. We need to do interviews and then fill that position. So my understanding is that they are there to promote the zero waste policies, and they meet every other month on the second Thursday from 1 to 3 p.m. in Santa Rosa. I think it's over near the county administration. So that will, so if you're interested in that position, you can talk to me, or you can reach out to Diana. And we will be looking for someone to fill that position. So the Recology contract is a very old, this is my understanding, because I did speak with, let's see, I didn't write her name down, darn, Celia Ferber. I did speak with her about the Recology contract, and I was told it's a very old contract, and our rates in Sebastopol are really low. And that because they want to renegotiate, our rates in Sebastopol could even double in terms of the contract with Recology. We're getting a lot of support for keeping Recology. The previous council recommended doing what's called a request for proposals for other contracts. So this will be coming back to the April 18th council. And I don't know exactly what's going to be on the agenda. The agenda won't come out until Thursday. But we have been receiving a lot of comments in support of keeping Recology. Windsor, the cities of Windsor and Sonoma do not use Recology. They have their own providers, separate providers. So that's that. And I wanted to tell you about two more things, and that is that Roberta Delgado reached out to me, and we had a conversation yesterday on Bike Sebastopol. They're a group formed in about 2020. And so we had an intro meeting. I also met with Emily Sharton of the Sonoma County Bike Coalition, and I'm asking them to both keep me informed about what's going on Regal Road, because there will be some new bike paths there on Regal Road. And then lastly, the council approved a bike path improvement near here on Morris Street, and that was approved through grant money to update and improve those paths right here between here and Highway 12. And that's it. Thank you.
Jerry?
Features we don't have in town that'd be nice to get into the contract. One of them is local recycle, place where we could bring surplus. Waste issue, too much cardboard being taken care of, but you put glass and for electronics and things like that. Since we're a service center for the West County, everybody has to go down to the dump, which is really not in the right place, and yet we are here. People are coming here to shop.
Are you needing, sorry, our tech is.
Anybody who's not speaking going out on Zoom. That's fine.
Yeah.
Once you hear.
Well,
Actually, I think we want you to go to the mic because Ambrosia from
sorry.
Recology is at this meeting and she can't hear you. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I couldn't
And
hear him
you
at
happen
all.
to know that I speak loud enough that,
can you start over? Because Ambrosia couldn't hear you and it
Oh,
was
you
relevant
couldn't
to
hear
her.
me?
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Well, I'll repeat that part. Part of the contract, it would be nice if we got local recycle for electronics, for other things besides just cardboard, instead of having to drive all the way down to the dump. And the second is, one of the things we don't have here that I had when I lived in the South Bay was something called dump day. And I know all of our neighbors put things out on the curb whenever they feel like it and looking for people to recycle. And yet we have a lot of things. I have a lot of neighbors who can't get in their garages because they're not going to drive down to the dump. And this would happen once a year. It would be a special day. And they would come around and pick up all of that. And this way we can keep our city cleaner.
I'll just make a short comment on that. That the reason the city's rates are so low is because they don't have the amenities. So we did talk about having more amenities, and then that would possibly justify the higher rates. Yeah.
Well, speaking of more amenities, there's an opportunity for looking at electric garbage trucks. Healdsburg as pilot project that, and I know there's been an issue with the equipment sometimes not coming up to standards, but it's at least worth looking at. The other thing, I don't know if any of you have used the public trash recycling compost receptacles around town. The city invested them. There's quite a few more just regular garbage cans and recycling containers, and they're a mess. Most of the straight recycling is a mix that it all just ends up in the dump, at least from my understanding. Yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ambrosia. So there are containers that force the bottles and the cans into the right receptacle. Europe is much more on top of this, and other cities in the US, it means new garbage cans. So that means an opportunity with the upcoming contract to look at maybe funding some new cans that would make that easier. My understanding was that the contract wasn't up until 2024. So my question was, is this early negotiations?
I believe it's up at the end of this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I saw Sunali's hand first, then Lisa.
Hi. I appreciate what Jerry said about more amenities, and I also question everyone in the township being charged for those who have excess waste. And if Recology was going to include more amenities, I would also want that paralleled with more education on reduction of use, because if people can't get into their garages, then there's another mindset that needs to come into play in that equation. Thank you. So just to be clear, I think what Steve was referring to are garbage cans with smaller holes, right? So you can fit a bottle or a can in the hole, but yeah, we do see a tremendous amount of just everything going into recycling. And I don't know whether it's possible to spend some of that increased fee on education. I think that's a really hard nut, but I think even in our town, people are woefully ignorant about how to recycle.
All right, so Ambrosia, you heard all that. So your working group has plenty to take back. I don't know if you want to, we're about to go to our regular agenda, and we'll have updates about anything that's not on the agenda. So feel free to add an update to that. And just for the context of the larger committee, is that there have been moments at city council meetings where council members have said to us, like, are you guys doing anything about these trash cans? So I think there's some, everyone wants something to happen about these trash cans that are not being used, and no one's quite sure who's in charge or what to do. Just so, yeah. Sunali.
A quick soul note is what just came to heart was if Recology had a quick, short, fun little video educational that each customer received, and they had to like answer a questionnaire at the end of it to prove that they watched the video, and then that like was reflected on their bill in some way. So they were charged a higher rate if they hadn't seen it, to try and promote. I'm so glad you said that, because that reminds me of something that I actually said in my interview for the coming on this committee, which is, what about if you get a little bit of a discount on your bill if you watch the video and then answer like 3 or 5 questions, and you can take the test as often as you want, but then you get some kind of little bonus for it.
I love it. And you do get a discount if you get a smaller trash can. So that that's already in place.
But then what if you just put all your, but then you can just put all your trash in
Right.
your recycling.
That is true.
Mm.
No one would do that. No one would do that. All right. I think we'll move on and move to our regular agenda. So that is working group reports for activities not on the agenda. Are there any working groups that have something they would like to bring forward? That's a nod from Dina, so I'll hand it to her.
Okay, well, we'll both talk about education, but first sequestration. We had our gardening day with over 20 volunteers showed up and worked in the community garden. Looks a lot better, but there's still some opportunities. We have Joshua meeting some high school kids on April 16th, which is Sunday from 10:30 to 12. He has a project he is having them do, and we're having the gates open if anyone wants to volunteer and spread some of the free compost we diverted over from our compost giveaway, which happened the 2nd of April. And we also have an opportunity during the next compost giveaway to work in the garden at the same time the gates will be open, which would be May 6th from 9 to 12. And we're hoping that our working group can hand this over to the new garden coordinator and the new gardeners that are coming. There's a few that are renting boxes now. So I think we're moving in the right direction, revitalizing the community garden. And
Can I ask a question? So
yes.
is there a new coordinator?
Yes, there's one of the gardeners that has stepped
Oh,
up to
great.
take that role. Yeah. And there's been a few people that have asked about renting boxes since this all started, so that's good too. Okay, so Alex made a comment when we were talking in education and outreach about the enrichment series that started, but some of the topics that he thought of that would be future series are already being handled elsewhere. Carbon Conversations, a nonprofit in town that puts those on. And is there a possible way to kind of co-sponsor or collaborate so that work is not being done, the same work in 2 different venues and times and efforts? And I would like you to elaborate on that and see if we could see if that would be something we could do.
Check. The goal would be to utilize the climate engagement series and just kind of collaborate with the Carbon Conversations because they're similar topics and discussions, and potentially utilize you turn me down. Okay. Utilize the promotion, like the promotional capabilities and just the newsletter and things like that on the city platforms that I think maybe are not accessible normally. So that would kind of be our goal, just trying to figure out the logistics of the city rules and how we can or cannot collaborate. That's
Is
all.
that a question for staff?
Maybe.
I think collaborating with a nonprofit, so that is that Tor's group?
Yes.
Yeah. I think collaborating with an outside group in this case is fine. I think we've already advertised in the city newsletter the Carbon Conversations.
Oh.
So yeah, we can coordinate that, but I don't see that being an issue.
Great.
Yeah, I think, do you want comments?
Sure.
I think it's a great idea. There seems to be a lot of energy and momentum around the Carbon Conversations right now, and they're picking up the exact topics that I think were proposed for the engagement series. So anyway, we can dovetail that and, give people a pathway into joining working groups. I know Energy is looking for some people, like just creating a little synergy between these audiences and topics. It's awesome.
Great. Yeah. And I think our target markets, our target audiences are similar. So it's great. We'll work on it. We'll get back to you. Thank you.
Sandy has a question or comment.
I have a question for Dina about the community garden plots. Are there plots available for the public? And if so, is there a cost and who would they contact? You want to answer that?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer it. So they can, there are plots available. There is a $25 deposit and then a $20 annual fee that we collect. And they can submit those to the planning department.
Okay.
I believe the application is on the Climate Action Committee's section of the website. Or if they want to email the planning department, we can provide that application for them.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything else? Oh, sorry. Yes, they know.
Yeah. I'd like to make a more broader statement about climate conversations, and I think it's necessary in town that nonprofits, city, even businesses start working together, because this climate change is way beyond anybody's capacity to work on. So I'm looking at carbon conversation as like our local nonprofit that does the education. And we can feed it ideas and support them, maybe expanding their projects. But they have such an expertise and resources already to work on that part of our mission that I think we should kind of reflect on this more broader. Where in town can we find nonprofits, even big corporations or businesses who take on some of our agenda? Because it's not just city operation that we want to decarbonize. We want to decarbonize the whole town of Sebastopol. So we need to reach out and broader, I feel.
So another question for staff around this to follow up is, I believe when the energy conversation was going to be having, there was a question about like, well, can Rahus send out an email to the Climate Action Committee's email list? And my answer in the moment was, well, we should send the email. They can send it to us and we should send it. So, but just any
That is
kind of
correct.
guidelines,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah,
anything
that
like
is correct. So the city doesn't want to be sending non-city communications to people who have signed up for city newsletters who may not be interested in it. Just like you wouldn't want some company giving it to somebody else and getting stuff from them all of a sudden. So, but if there is something that you're collaborating on and the Climate Action Committee is helping to sponsor, then that can certainly, that goes through myself and Holly to, Holly always asks me before sending it out to the list. She maintains the list. And that would be the process. Or if it's simply, and I think this happened with the carbon conversations, hey, can we advertise this and let people know about it? It seemed like a great education opportunity. So we just simply put that in the newsletter as something happening around town.
Great, thank you. I'm assuming you guys will have a conversation with Tor and yourself, yeah. Figure out, well, what is it that we could do to kind of bring some support to the series rather than just saying, thanks for doing the series. Yeah, but thank you for doing the series. I've been hearing great things about it when I haven't been able to attend, so. Okay. Any other items from education outreach? Nope. Okay. Any other working groups? Yes.
Yeah, this is for transportation. So we have the pedestrian bicycle master plan update, which is part of our working group's work plan for this and next year. And the city works on this update plan with Sonoma County Transportation Authority, and they have hired a consulting firm now, and that contract came to the board of directors, and our mayor is a member of that board yesterday. So it's Firm and Pierce, that is the contractor. And for anybody who's interested in the details, there's the previous request for proposals is online, and also the contract is online. And so anybody who wants to work with the transportation subcommittee or working group should contact us. We already talking a lot with Bike Sebastopol. They have formed a monthly working group that writes down, that identifies areas of concern in town, makes a wish list of next steps in making Sebastopol a more bike-friendly, safe place to bicycle. And so this fits in our mission to reduce vehicle mile travel.
Great. Anything else from transportation? Or questions? Nope. Right, any other working groups? I'm looking at you. Oh, go ahead.
On the working group.
I don't know why I didn't think you were gonna go talk when you're walking towards the mic.
That's an update on the electrification survey. We're up to 384 as of today. And if you haven't already filled it out, please do. The link is right on the city's main page and on our committee's page. And if you have any friends or neighbors that might be interested in something like this, let them know too. It goes through the end of the month. And a whole nother topic, another committee, the funding committee, who it's been kind of moribund after the last, I don't know, 8 months, long time since you've heard from us, but there has been activity. Been working on a document that was sent to the RCPA, the Regional Climate Protection Authority. And at yesterday's meeting, it was brought up and discussed, not only the document, but the idea. So they're looking at funding for 2024 general election. And they've primarily been thinking in terms of sales tax to fund a climate measure. Staff has done a little bit of work on looking at alternatives, but our document really presented quite a few different alternatives to the sales tax. We looked at the TOT, the transient occupancy tax. We looked at an airport passenger fee. We looked at the utility users tax and a parcel tax and a vehicle license fee. And we presented what our estimation was of what those measures could raise in 2023 dollars. And after I spoke and referred to the document, there did seem to be at least 4 or maybe half of the board members at the RCPA seem to be interested in especially the airport fee. It's kind of like, you know, let's tax somebody else, kind of. That's always an easier sell than taxing yourself. And some interest in the TOT. So that there seems to be interest in trying to make this funding source more equitable. And we're at the beginning of this process. They're trying to figure out how the money would be spent, how much money do we need, but you're still going to come back to what are the equity implications of how we're going to fund this. And probably all you know, sales tax is pretty regressive. In fact, the lowest income people spend more than 4 times as a percent of their income than the highest income people on sales tax. So I think it was well received, and funding committee made a difference. There's quite a few people here in the room that helped out with it, and thanks very much for helping on that document. I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you for the update.
Go
ahead.
I'm sorry, this isn't the funding committee. Are we still on the funding committee?
Any questions for funding committee? No, go ahead.
So I think we'll be back at the farmers market again for the electrification survey and promoting various other things. So if you are around, come and say hi.
And yeah, go ahead, Sandy.
Well, I have a question about the funding committee. And I didn't hear you mention reaching out for private donations. It seems to me that that could be a really good source for funding, is to go to private donors.
They're looking for the millions of dollars. If we're going to try to move the needle at all, we need quite a bit of money, and whatever we get won't be enough. So taxing is mainly what they're looking at, but in fact, that's all they're looking at. They're not looking at bond financing or that kind of donation type of approach. You know, we're talking, you know, maybe 20, 30 million a year is what they're looking for.
Okay, what about grants?
They hope to leverage the money they do get from revenue to get more grants, because a lot of the grants are matching grants.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? I have a question about the electrification survey. Do you guys have any preliminary data about like just broad percentage of inside versus outside city limits. Because people have been so interested in that.
Just stay up there.
It's okay. You don't, I just, if you knew off the top of your head. Oh, interesting.
A little bit out in the zip code, but
So your N is still pretty small, you're 384, but I think it's a good response, and it started a lot of conversation. I think we've gotten more public comment since this electrification survey started than ever before. So it's definitely creating some buzz and awareness. Any other working groups? Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of agree with looking more into private contributions. It may be that a certain project that I had to fund and mention that kind of project with taxes. And there may be smaller amounts, but they can bring more focus on certain things that need to happen. So I would not dismiss it because of the numbers immediately, but I think it's worth looking into.
Lisa?
I don't think we really know how to do that. Not yet.
So, and you were talking about RCPA's funding strategy as opposed to Sebastopol's funding strategy. Yeah. Yeah. So I think anybody with great leads on how to get money for Sebastopol is welcome as well. Sandy, go ahead.
If you wanted to have a conversation about that, I did a little research on how to fundraise. I did some fundraising myself. And it's really that personal ask. I just think there's so many people who care about this issue that you make that personal ask, you make it easy for people to donate. You can get some seed money for getting grant or, start the ball rolling, but it's those personal connections and that one-on-one ask that really can make a difference. So thank you.
Phil?
So
it's gonna take quite a while to understand how they're going to the cities. In fact, if you go to one, they're working on buildings, transportation, and the water. And they only have a few meetings, but they're now starting to talk about how they raise the revenue. The meetings about how we expand.
So Steve, I'm just going to really quickly repeat that. We have people who are attending remotely who cannot hear you and we cannot get the closed caption for people who need it when you're not at the microphone. So just as a note that this is an RCPA measure, not a city measure. And so this is for them to look at getting for regional wide, which is the RCPA is the whole county, of which all of the cities in the county are a member.
Debbie, I see your hand up. Are you wanting to speak or were you trying to get Steve to go to the
No,
mic?
I couldn't hear Steve, but I did want to speak also. I just wanted some clarification on the fundraising mode when you're saying a direct contact, asking people, is that you're thinking people ask their contacts or doing something like a phone bank through the city? I wasn't sure. I did do fundraising for many, many years. This is definitely in my tool house, and I can certainly help facilitate or anything with that. I just wasn't sure on what the agenda was for that particular item.
Yeah, it sounds like there's some interest in this. I do want to move on to our other agenda items, but it sounds like funding working group, if you're going to continue meeting, that this exploring a little bit of what it would look like to, what is it, like how could people give money for climate projects in the city of Sebastopol is a question that is coming from this group. So, and Debbie, is your hand still up on purpose?
No, it is not.
Okay, thank you. All right, Zaino.
Yeah, I wonder when the website will be updated with respect to the working group membership. Because I did tell you that I'd like to be part of the funding group, and I had some input with Steve, but it wasn't clear that this was the funding group.
Sorry.
So
We're still working. There's a big website update happening. And Carrie, do I still owe you a list of the working? I thought I sent you a list of the working group members, but maybe I never sent it. So I may owe, that may be my bad. And I will follow up with Carrie afterwards to make sure she has the current group. I'll put it in the action items.
okay.
All right. So I'm looking around and I think we can move on to our green home tours report from the energy group.
And I was going to make a comment on donations. Since I sit on the county advisory board, Measure M, we've raised close to $500 million. And most of that money is used to leverage other money. And we didn't get half of what we needed done on that. Anyway, to the Green Building Tour. The Green Building Tour is one of the 5 work plan items submitted by the Energy Group. This is the 3rd one that you've heard. There's 2 more to follow. The basic idea, I hope everybody's had a chance to read this. We sent it in October, so there probably was plenty of time to read the document. The model for the Green Building Tour is similar to this done in other counties. Since COVID, Marin County, Alameda have gone and do theirs now virtual. It's actually been done before here in Sonoma County, and Jeff Cypers told me that we had one here many years ago. The reason that we thought about this was in part because I had attended a Green Building Tour probably more than 10 years ago in the South Bay, and it covered Sunnyvale, Mountain View, Palo Alto area. And we got to talk to neighbors who had done things in their homes, had insulated, had electrified, had done all kinds of things. And that's where I started becoming aware of what you can do with your home and how you can do it economically. The thing that struck me at the time was that on the tour, I got to talk to people directly, face to face, on what they had done. So they were real people. And often their contractors were there or suppliers were there to do the same thing. So it became kind of an economy of putting this together of all the pieces. Contractors who didn't show up suddenly realized there was a reason for them to get into this business and start thinking about, how do I put in electric or heat pumps instead of gas water heaters? And how do I do insulation as part of every project that I do? And how do I make sure that the windows I put in are the right kind of windows for each one of my customers? Because the customers started looking for those things. They included things like wastewater, collection of rain, what plants you plant, what vehicles you drive. So the tour covered all of those things that have to do with becoming sustainable. That's the model for this. If you read through the document, we did some footwork to start with on this. We really didn't expect that we would do it this year, that it would take over a year to put it together. That the funding would come, in this case, from donations from different businesses that would be marked as being funders of this, and that's the way it's done in other counties. That multiple organizations would be involved, and Sebastopol could get it started. Nobody else seems to be getting it started. Carrie has suggested I contact the AIA. They were very interested and said, yeah, we definitely want to do this. The Green Building Council said, hey, we'll take care of keeping track of all the funding and things like that. RCPA said, we're interested, but we're overwhelmed because they thought we wanted to do it this month. With the year, hopefully we can get them involved as well. SCP, Sonoma Clean Power, was contacted. Their program manager said, yeah, let me get my folks talking about this. Basically, the idea is blocked out as to what it would include. And if you can imagine anything that has to do with sustainability is probably there. When we talked to the building department here, Steve Brown said, yeah, I've got a number of sites here I want to take people to show what they've been doing. I was pretty proud of the things I had done. And then Steve told me what he had been doing. And I use a lot less insulation than he does. I only use 2.5 inches. He uses 5 inches. So there's a lot of things to be seen. And in many cases, part of that tour is that the contractors end up being along on the tour as well. And they realize how the building techniques are changing. We know from the study work that we did on looking at what we might do with our building code as far as going all electric, when we looked at Title 24, how things have changed in the state as well, starting in this year. Most contractors don't know that. They don't recognize that the building techniques are changing very quickly. For most of us, we don't recognize that we either have to put an extra layer of insulation outside our house or an extra layer of insulation inside of our house if we're building a new building, because a 6-inch wall is not thick enough anymore. My tour in Europe recently to a friend's new house, I was so proud that my walls were 10 inches thick. Their new houses, their walls are 18 inches thick. That's how much insulation is required to make a building sustainable. So we're starting to see a lot of changes, and I see some eyes flip up going, really? And I'm going, yeah, really. That's what's required. And at the state level today, I don't think you can build a 10-inch wall that necessarily, certainly can't build a 10-inch roof that complies with the state regulations at this point. It's got to be thicker. So I hope you've all read this and got the basic idea. What we would need to do is the same thing we're doing with metrics, where we put a task group together. And the task group works on this on a regular basis, working it out, and we'll bring something back to the committee saying this is where we think it's going to go. But it requires putting a group together to focus on this. And it's not the energy group. This is a separate group that says, I mean, it's nice that you have, and you guys know since I was on this committee that I didn't like the breakdown by the different task groups, because I actually think as a committee, you should say, we want to do this, and then ad hoc groups get formed that then work on a project. Very much like what you've done with composting. You know, a task group got together and it's beyond just the group doing sequestration and those pieces. So any questions? I went through that fast. I have a presentation on this too, but you've already seen it. Yeah.
What's your timeline for having this event?
I kept thinking that sometime in the spring of 2024 would be likely that we could do this. We start working on it soon. When I met with the Green Building Council president, he was the one who turned to me and said, you know, we should block this down into a series of weekends so that people don't have to travel so far. So there could be a West County and there could be a North County and there could be an East County a tour, and put those pieces together. I know when I first brought this up and outlined it just as a series of words, the council members came back and Sarah said, well, let's use the bus here in town to take people around from point to point and make it a tour like that. And I reacted negatively to that because I think it's beyond Sebastopol. I think we're participants. We might lead. That's a possibility as well. The reason for not doing it in the bus, you don't want 35 people to show up to go talk to one person. You want people to have one-on-one. That's where the impact actually is made, is on the one-on-one, talking to people saying, yep, you were able to do that. I'm just as smart as you are, or I have as much resources as you. I could do it too.
So, I mean, my thought is, why don't we just start with a Sebastopol event and just literally do the let's call it the city limits of Sebastopol and do it. Then we could have an event in, you know, July, August. I don't know. I'm just throwing something out there and work out some kinks, get some interest brewing, and then in spring you could launch Sonoma County. I just feel like I want to see this stuff this year. I don't want to wait till spring of next year to get something going, and I'm happy to help. But I think there could be a lot of momentum in just getting even the city of Sebastopol started, and then go from there, expanding to the county next year.
Well, I'd say no, only for this reason. The amount of work required to do it, to set it up, get the funding, et cetera, for our city is the same amount of work as it might take to do a large part of the county. If you look at the other counties, they're not done by city. They're done by the county. They're at a county level. They're covering more places. It also gives you more opportunity to see different pieces of building. You all can tour my house if you want.
We can agree to disagree.
I know.
Yeah, I would like to make a plea for hiring a nonprofit to this that has experience in doing these kind of green building tours, which is Daily Act in Petaluma. And we have worked with them, the city has worked with Daily X. And Daily X has, over the last 10 years of an existence, developed a great experience and expertise in putting it all together.
I mean, that's a great idea, and that's a good place to start. And that's why I'm contacting the other groups to find out if I could find somebody who said, hey, I want to lead this. Was one place that I wanted to go. For instance, the support we just said, Zeno, was that in Alameda County, the Native Plant Society, a nonprofit, creates the Green Building Tour. Now they do them separately, but they've created both of them.
Yeah, and then the other suggestion is it's kind of a bit like Alex. I think we could start thinking about this as creating a tradition, like a recurrent thing over the years, and which also would allow them to start modestly. Don't try to make this the biggest thing ever, cover everything. So start simple and grow it over the years. Find more funding if we work with Daily X. Find more funding to support that organization.
I see nothing wrong with doing that.
Because there are certain elements that are harder to integrate in this tour. For example, the transportation element. Right, we always think about green building as tightening the envelope, getting passive solar, getting an EV. But you have to think about how a building invites travel, encourages travel. So if I build a very green building in the middle of the desert that requires a helicopter pad and cars to rush down the road.
You saw the house that I
It's
toured
still-
in Tucson that had 2 helicopters in front?
Well, it's a green building. It's a green building, but it's not the kind of green building we like to.
Exactly,
promote,
yeah.
right? So we need to be aware of how this building fits into infill and bus stops and bicycle parking. And these are kind of new ideas, I think. That,
But look, if you look at the list of things that on the presentation I gave last year, look at the list of things that we thought of when we first started saying, what do we mean by a green building tour? It lists a lot of those things.
Right.
Right? Lisa? Oh,
Suggestion.
Can you, thank
go on
you.
there. Yeah.
I have a small general suggestion, and it's mostly about outreach and marketing, and it's sort of the same, and it's low budget. But I feel like our group and each committee can station something at the Sunday market and have ambassadors there. And that way you can have examples of houses, homeowners, and different people rotating in, so that you have people with personal experience be able to talk to people. Because one thing people that are scared of is talking to contractors and people that are selling them things. So if you have people that own electric cars or own some of these, green fabric, new technologies, they are physically there with pictures, and they're there every Sunday. And it's kind of a reliable way to touch the community continuously, rather than have one big moment. And then this kind of booth costs nothing, costs volunteers to post up, and you can continually spread your message and stay involved in the community that way.
Lisa? No.
There. Just to follow up on that, yeah, we really got great responses, and we're able to give people a lot of information about incentives, and we were passing out free recycling buckets and that kind of thing at the farmers market. So we had an excuse to be there with the electrification survey, but it was very productive. A couple of thoughts on the tour. One is that every spring there's a Waterwise garden tour that I'm wondering if it even makes sense to try to do it on the same weekend, possibly, so that when people can kind of visit a garden and a house, if they're in the neighborhood. And there was one other thing too. Maybe I'll think of it later.
But that was on the list, by the way, because if you look at the list, it talks, I
Yes.
didn't know about that tour,
Yes.
But, and you know our place, and basically, when we moved here, my wife removed every plant on the site and planted all natives. And for the first year we watered, and I think she waters once a month now.
Hmm.
And that's about it. So you can be very water wise.
Yeah.
Is that anything?
No.
Sonali, sorry.
Well, I feel electrified by all these suggestions and I think big, and I just feel like this is ripe for a big fair. Like we just take it all and make it like, I know Dina and I in the education group have been talking about, having examples of like tending and mending where people are or fix it cafes, just all the ways, like a big climate fair and make it fun. We have so many events that are around commodification, but if we like rallied the whole thing, got the buses involved, then it could be, yeah.
Well, and that's somewhat different. In my recollection, when I did the tour in the South Bay, I walked in one person's house, which wasn't done yet. And saw the ductwork up above and how they had done things. And I looked at it and said, wait, I can do that too. At a fair, you'll get some pictures, you'll get some discussion, but it's the touching and seeing it that I think is really impactful.
Agreed. No, along with that.
Okay.
But
yeah.
also having like booths in the plaza that are like speaking to other aspects like
Yeah.
recycling education, just all the different aspects of climate. If we could bring that in and make it a celebration while we did the tours, then it gives people things to do in between the houses as well.
Alex?
Yeah. My thought was, having like either a landing space or like a home base while through the tours, or like you do something you do tours in the morning, like, 10 to 1 or something. And then you have like a expo kind of, whatever in the afternoon. And then that gives a chance. Maybe you can have the contractors or whoever have booths and like, there's a little more of an in-depth discussion that could be had. But I could see arguments where you could just do that at the houses, but I could see a value in having a central location where you kind of can help distribute people to different houses and have more like your information just centralized for green building stuff.
Yeah, I think in general, when and if the team forms that's going to have this happen, that they take all of this in place and incorporate it. Lisa?
I remembered what I was going to say.
Good.
That is it in support of having a county-wide type of event as opposed to just Sebastopol. Most contractors are working in a much bigger area than just Sebastopol.
Yeah, and we've had the discussions in the energy team specifically, and how do we get contractors set up now so they're thinking differently, and that is a major part in doing this. The one example I use was a friend of mine contacted me from the South Bay in Sunnyvale, and his water heater broke. So he wanted to put in a heat pump, and the contractor came in and said, well, the building permit's $1,200. It's going to cost you $9,000 to put in a heat pump, and I can't do it for X number of weeks. So he ended up getting a gas water heater. So I called the planning director of Sunnyvale and I said, Trudy, what are you doing? And she said, we have a discounted building permit to change the panel. We have a discounted building permit to put in the heat pump. And she said, and we're having one heck of a time getting contractors to learn how to do things the way they need to be done in the future or today. So yeah, contractors are important and they work more than right here. Even my friends who are contractors, they've done 2 projects here in town, but the rest of them are in the county.
So what can the committee do for you today?
Well, one is when we put on the work plan, the basic idea is you take something from the task groups, you bring it to the committee discusses it and says, do we want to do something? If we want to do something, then let's first say, yes, we want to do it, and you vote on that. Next is you develop a task group, find somebody to lead it, to set that up and see where it goes. We're doing that with metrics so far. You've already done it with the electrification as far as a survey. So that would be the direction that I would expect.
And is this something that would have to, like, that we would ask council, like, what would the process be if we say, yes, we want to do this, we're going to make a task group? It's not, this is not at the point where we would move it to council. We just make a task group at this point.
Yeah,
correct?
Carrie has
I don't
to
know.
answer that, but the point I would take is this. You want to take something to the council when you have a recommendation to the council that the city act on something. If you're going to study something and see if you can bring some others together, you probably don't want to take it to the council yet. And not that you don't have to, you don't want to. If you want to say, and this is how Silicon Valley Clean Energy got started. I took something to the city council in Sunnyvale and I said, do you want to spend some money studying what it would take to create a CCA for Santa Clara County? And I gave a pitch on that and they decided to spend the money, which was not a lot of money. You know, for Sebastopol would be a lot of money. It was $70,000 to create a tens of $1 million enterprise in the county. Here, if you wanted to go down a different route and say, I want to take it to the council to see if Sebastopol wants to work on this as a Sebastopol project, then you do take it to city council saying, we're recommending that we have a green building tour, that we participate and that we go out and maybe you have budget that says you need some money in order to go find the other organizations and to get donations.
Okay, so I think I understand the gist of the question. So I think in terms of council, the event itself is a long way off. And I think one thing that you to recognize is that this was included in the work plan, which council saw and approved. So from that perspective, if it's part of your quarterly report or the semi-annual, whatever, whenever you're reporting to council, I think at this point, that's probably good. I don't think you certainly don't need to go to continue working on the project because they've approved it through the work plan. Providing them information as it develops, I think would be helpful. That way, if there are other initiatives, especially if it grows a little bit, you can ask for guidance or direction from council. But yeah, I think you're good at this point.
But by the way, just to add, the general question, it's a good one because we brought 5 things back to the committee saying we think these should be out part of the work plan. Remember, the council was the one that came back and said by 2030 we want to be net zero. Okay, what are we doing to get to net zero? Well, this is the only committee I think which is focusing on getting to net zero. So what are the activities that the committee is going to do? Another one that you'll get probably in the next month or so is the one that talks about neighborhood energy. And just recently, I just recognized that there's legislation now going in to support that happening. It would have been pretty difficult otherwise. So it might happen sooner than we think. And we need to think about how that changes our zoning, how that changes a bunch of other things. So that's a study as well for the committee to work on.
So given that it is part of our work plan, which we've already approved, what is, I guess, are you wanting another vote today for the committee to say, yes, we like this idea, we'd like it to move forward? Are you looking for, or are you more looking for individual committee members to sign up for a task group?
Well, and I think first find somebody who might want to lead the effort and then to recruit the people to work on the effort. Okay. It might be a committee member. It might be outside of the committee. You're using a lot of people from the community, and on the metrics task force, we have 1 committee member, and there's 3 of us who are not committee members working on it. And we're working on a regular basis, outlining those things. And those will eventually come back to you for approval as metrics, as to a process, et cetera. So I think the same thing here when we're looking for, since you've already put it in the work plan, the question is, how are you going to work it?
It's a good question. So I guess the question is coming to the committee. Do we want to actually move this forward by someone stepping up and taking a leadership role yeah, go ahead.
I just have a clarifying question. How is it categorized in the work plan? Like, I know it's under the framework. Is it under a certain group, or is it under, no? Because I know like for transportation, it's like T3 or that kind of thing, you know, like the way that the work plan structured. Yeah, okay, well.
We took your template from last year, expanded it so that staff had a place in order to respond to ideas and things coming back to the committee. And in the write-up, it lists both for the elements in the general plan, as well as the portions of the framework, what we thought was appropriate. So if you want to use that as a guideline as to which group it goes to, that would be fine. I don't think that's necessary, but
So we're seeing it here is listed under BE, I believe. Right? Is that BE? I don't know what that stands for. We'll have to look at the framework. Building and energy. So, okay, that's helpful. I just wanted to understand how it was categorized, and then that could help us kind of distribute it. I'd be open to looking at potentially leading that or starting at least putting a group together. I think it's really interesting. Yeah. We'll talk offline. If anybody's interested, email Jerry or I.
Do you feel satisfied?
anything else?
I'm just saying anything else. Like, does any, thank you, Alex. That's amazing. I think it's an amazing project, and I wholeheartedly support it, and I'm not in any position to take on any leadership. So anyone else that wants to
Just
speak?
clarifying, I didn't commit yet. We're gonna work offline, and we'll get back to the next meeting.
And one thing I will note on this, if I may, can I jump in here? Is, yeah, when Jerry, this is the type of the tour that the AIA will do by itself. And so definitely leveraging them, and what it is basically is it's a platform for architects and contractors who are doing this kind of work to advertise to potential clients. So you will get a lot of kind of volunteer work from those types of folks. And if you're talking about, some way of having a showcase or something like that, the AIA also connects in with a lot of vendors. If you think about solar energy, heat pumps, those types of things. And so, that is something that, potentially at like when we had the housing fair, that was at the main community center building, and it had booths around the room from everyone from Redwood Credit Union, which at the time was the only people who would finance for an ADU on a single family home. Everyone else was like, oh, it's multifamily, we don't want to touch it. But Redwood Credit Union was there because they did that. We had architects, we had people from the county, we had also, you could have people from Bayren and some of the other organizations that we're already working with there too, in terms of outreach for people. So that is the type of thing that definitely could be part of this. So that's.
I didn't know existed until in here.
Yeah, Steve.
I see Ambrosia.
Can you, Ambrosia can't hear you.
This is the.
Oh, Ambrosia, sorry. Hi. Would you like to speak? Sorry. Thank you. I'll
No,
bring my
it's
computer next
okay.
time.
I have an update, but whenever it's appropriate, I can chime in. Our working group.
I think if there's anything else about green building tour, we should finish that up, but I think we're done unless I don't see anybody waving at me. So go ahead.
All right. So our working group, right now we're currently working on erecting some waste stations or eco stations for events in Sebastopol. And if any of you have been to the Gravenstein Apple Fair, you're very familiar with the design and the look. So we're trying to get funding for that outside of our little bubble here, to build some waste stations. So for like the farmer's market, I don't know, apple blossom, anything like that. We're starting the pilot this weekend at the community center, and Alan and Shelley from Farm Trails were kind enough to let us borrow their station and to see how it goes during an event, a real live event. Of course they are gonna have volunteers to man each station. I think we're only gonna do 2 inside. So that is exciting. I can't wait to see how it goes. Let's see. Oh, apple blossom. Did you want me to update you on the zero waste efforts at Apple Blossom?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we're still really needing volunteers for the waste stations. We don't have a lot of folks this year, but what we're going to be doing is I've already talked to pretty much all the vendors and was very clear with them about, the types of utensils they can use, cups and so on. Also, too, we have, we're going to try to incorporate more reuse this year. Yeah, I think that's all kind of it right now. We're getting really close. We have a couple more weeks till then, so it's coming along. And then, did you want me to speak on the downtown trash situation?
I think you could bring that. Maybe we can agendize that. It's a
Okay. Yeah.
bigger conversation, and we have a few things on the agenda that we want to get to today, including the Apple Blossom Fair. Okay. Anything else?
Oh, no, I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So, library art project update.
Neely, the one of the volunteers who's been coming, has reached out to the local high school, and there's students who are interested in helping make that happen. We still don't have a time on the 24th. So I called the library today. Matthew Rose is out for a couple of weeks. So as soon as we find out a time, we'll
That's
let you know.
June 24th.
Yeah. So hopefully by next meeting, we'll have that more solidified. And it sounds like she will be there. Debbie, are you committed to being there that day? I don't recall.
Sorry, did you say Debbie?
Yes. For the library art project, are you planning on being there that day, June 24th?
Are you talking to me? You're going in and out. I can't hear. Yes.
Hi.
I don't think I'm going to be in town that day, so I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anybody else who wants to join, but that's it.
I will be in town. So if the teens need someone to stand over them who does
Okay.
not do art, I'm more than willing.
Thank you.
All right. So next is Apple Blossom. Is that you, Steve?
Little difficult because I just posted into Zoom a link for sign up for tabling effort. I think Sonali, you might be able to speak more to the actual parade. And from my understanding, the city that we learned last month is all the city officials and the committees are all welcome to participate with the city as they proceed down the parade route. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sonali. Okay. And I don't know if we're going to have a contingent on that. you can speak to that. I'm going to speak to a tabling effort that Diana I said, yeah, I'll help organize that. So anybody who is interested in tabling, I've posted in the Zoom, not too helpful for people in the room, a schedule to sign up. As far as I'm concerned, if we could just handle the Saturday part of the 2-day event, that would probably be very adequate, because Saturday seems to be the big day anyway there. So there are 2-hour increments for sign up, and Diana is going to set up a table with a tent, and this is welcome to any commissions or committees that are part of the city to table at this event, but she thought we might be the only ones there. Don't know. And we're going to bring literature about incentives. Of course, the electrification survey is still going. Those last 2 days of the month, we're going to push that, and other stuff like the carbon conversations. I think we can have information about that. So I'm open to any kind of tabling efforts that people have, either literature or some other type of banner or anything like that. I think that we'll have the city's banner there on the table itself. So open to questions.
Do you have a paper that you could just pass around the
I did
room?
not print one, but I'll grab anybody who's interested in doing it.
Okay.
I can just fill it in online. We're trying to get people's cell phone number and a time in case, things change and you need to contact people.
Do you want to send that to me to send to all the members, or do you just want to grab people as they
I think I'll just grab
Okay.
people, come to me at the end, and then I'll just sign it up right into the online form itself.
Great. Well, thank you guys. It sounds like you're doing a lot to make this easy to sign up for. I saw Lisa and then I saw Sonali.
Do you get to come in for free if you sign up at the
Yeah.
table?
From the email from Diana, I didn't see anything that indicated it was all geared towards vendors. So I'll try to reach out for the event and find out if there's some way that we can get the free admission.
Ambrosia looks like maybe she knows something about this.
Yeah, I'm president on the Chamber of Commerce, and we're actually getting Apple Blossom together right now. From my understanding, the rule is you get 5 tickets per for volunteers to come in, but please check with Mariah Volt at the chamber, the executive director. She can probably give you a better idea and maybe work something out with you. So
Great. Thank you.
We'd like to bring the art pieces and hand out flyers about that and stick
Great.
to that. Okay.
Great. So I think the next piece, do you have anything else about the festival itself?
That's it.
Does anybody want to speak to the parade portion?
So I'm wondering, and I don't know if Ambrosia, you can, I wasn't clear. I know the council's coming and committee members are coming. Neely had reached out to the high school for the kids that are joining with the art project. Are volunteers, as people who have been involved in the committee or are interested in the committee, are they also welcome to join in the parade?
What I heard from Diana is more the committees and the council itself. I don't know about an extended. Go ahead. I'm done.
Go ahead.
As a council member, I have not received any information except from Diana that she had been talking to the mayor, and the mayor wanted to get a flatbed truck. But as far as I know, I have not been informed of anything about this. So at this point, it's still an unknown for me. Anyway, I've heard it, but I haven't gotten anything beyond hearing that. So just wanted to report on that.
I think I did clarify with Diana that active participants, it wasn't like, oh, only voting members, but it wasn't like whole city come out and march in the parade as the climate committee. It's that the invitation was to active participants in working groups
Right.
or
Kenna.
projects. Was
Yeah,
that-
I recall that from the last meeting as well. So if you're on a working group of the Climate Action Committee, that would qualify you to be part of it.
And then my understanding was that we were kind of welcome to follow the flatbed truck with our sign in our feet if we didn't want to ride on the fossil fuel burning vehicle.
I'm curious who here is planning on joining. It's the 29th of April at 10 a.m.
Are you raising your hand to talk? Or are you raising your hand to say you're coming? Yeah. Okay. Should we raise your hand if you want to march in the parade? I'll march. I always march somewhere.
Okay. I had thought we could get together the day before and make some banners. So, if
Or we
it's-
have our banner.
Oh, uh-huh.
Right.
With slogans or something, not a banner. Yeah. I'll make a few and bring them.
I'm sorry. I'm so maxed out right now.
Yeah, totally understand.
But our banner is, the thing is, does anybody know where our banner is? And can we access it?
I know exactly where it is in our house.
Perfect. So we don't have to get the key to the bathroom and the plaza and all that. Sandy?
If I get a chance, I will argue against the bed truck.
Uh-huh.
Thank you,
It
because we
just
can all use
doesn't
our
seem-
feet, right?
It doesn't seem to, match Sebastopol.
Okay, so I guess we now need, if there's some of us wanting to show up and we know where the banner is and the banner is with one of the people that wants to show up, we need to know where we're supposed to go. And I guess that's Diana who would be holding that piece of information. So I can take responsibility for finding out where and when to meet and sending it to the whole group. Were you wanting to say something, Alex? Thumbs up from Alex. Anyone on screen there? Okay. Anything else to do with Apple Blossom, which I just love our town. So I love Apple Blossom. It's fun. I'm looking forward to it. Hooray. All right. So the next item on the agenda is a request to support SB 252. And hopefully you guys had a chance to read this. I had a chance to read it, and I'm just going to have to make this note so I don't forget that I just said I would do something for Apple Blossom. I have a question for staff or council about this resolution, because this came forward from Woody, former committee member and current working group member, but he is unable to be here today to present it. It's pretty straightforward. Hopefully, if you haven't had a chance to read it, I've got a copy right here. Feel free if you didn't take a look, but it's really about CalPERS and CalSTRS. So I think it would be helpful for someone from staff to explain to the group how, so the request is that Climate Action Committee bring this forward and request that council make a resolution about this. And why would that be meaningful for the city to do?
Why would that be meaningful for the city to do? Well, just thank you. Didn't know I was making a presentation today, but that's okay. So CalPERS is the organization that the city of Sebastopol and a lot of other cities, there's 2 or 3 different public pension systems in the state of California, but CalPERS is kind of the big beast, right? And so I would think that if enough communities who are members of CalPERS, which also includes the state, and I don't know if it includes school districts, but I would imagine if enough cities requested that CalPERS divest from fossil fuel, that they might do that. CalPERS is a large enough behemoth of an investor, given the amount of funding they did, that they could move the needle. And I think that's probably just in a nutshell what it would mean.
I think that's really all I was asking was, like, is Sebastopol a stakeholder a meaningful stakeholder in CalPERS.
Yeah,
And
I would
it's, you know,
say.
not size wise.
Yeah, I would say
It's a member, like.
We are a member of CalPERS, yeah.
Okay. So are there any questions about this resolution, and whether it's something that we would want our city to support?
Yeah, I have
Questions, comments? Yes, all of the above. Go ahead.
yeah,
Zena.
earlier we said, do you have a conflict of interest? How would that apply to this resolution? So I'm a member of CalPERS. I taught philosophy at Sonoma State University, and my pension partially is to CalPERS.
That is an excellent question.
Is that a conflict of interest, or is it a embracing of
Right.
duty? Right?
Exactly. It's
So I think
probably
it's
more
an
than one way
embracing
to
of
look at
duty
that.
rather than a conflict.
But you're not going to profit. Well, you could actually
Well,
profit off of this, but
I think it's high time
not
that they
direct
get out of
profit.
the business.
like, you're not,
Anyhow, I support
Yeah.
this resolution.
it carries mulling, whether this is a conflict of interest.
I'm not sure. I would ask if you ever see this on the agenda, please ask me ahead of time because our city attorney is the big one on this. I don't think that there would be any direct financial change to Zeno's circumstances in this instance. So therefore, I do not think he would have a conflict of interest. It's only if there's like directly money in his pocket that would change should CalPERS, and I think this is enough removed that it is not that issue.
Perfect. Jerry?
And
You know,
Zeno's not the final vote either, so therefore, because it's advisory, as
Yeah.
long as he's
Yeah,
not the person putting it over the half point, I think we're
And
saying.
Woody's a member of the North Bay Electric Auto Association, and he asked the Auto Association also to support this. And we probably spent half of the meeting talking about this one, because a number of the members also have their retirement because of the positions they've had through CalPERS. One of the members, just for you to think about it, one of the members pointed out, and he said, well, wait a second. If we are major stockholders in the oil industries, then we can vote and we can have influence over what they do. But if we're not stockholders, then we can't. It was kind of a split vote as a result of some of those comments. As far as the conflict of interest, it probably fits the same way as it does with many things in the planning commission, where it would be the entire city is now impacted by this. So therefore nobody on the planning commission could vote. CalPERS is fairly well covered by so many different people that you wouldn't have people voting on it. But I always had a problem with it myself because I don't invest in fossil fuels. That's personal choice. But I never saw what the impact would be on a fossil fuel company if people didn't invest in it. If they were trying to raise more capital as a startup and issuing more stock, yeah, that would make a difference. But otherwise, I'm not sure how it impacts them. So I always wondered that, and nobody's ever answered that question. And somebody here knows, what's the impact if major investors leave a company? The stock's still going to be there and somebody's going to buy it at a lower price, but does that impact the company or impact what they do? So I don't know.
Steve?
Well, I guess I got to speak in a bit opposition to what Jerry was just saying. As a child of a mother who worked as a state teacher her whole life, and our daughter is a state teacher, there are quite a few employees that have brought this issue forward year after year and have gotten nowhere. It's a very conservative organization that runs both the state teachers and the public employee retirement system. And I liken it to South Africa and the apartheid type of embargo that happened. I was part of that, protesting at Berkeley many years ago. And you know what? We actually pushed it. Berkeley was one of the first, and started the divestment movement. The divestment movement from fossil fuels is strong, but these pension funds next to banks are, I would hazard a guess, the biggest investors, that we're talking billions and billions of dollars. This will have a much wider impact than just what happens in California. It will spread just like it did in the embargo movement against South Africa in the early 80s. Thank you.
I agree, and it'll also get people's attention. And I think that's worth something. So may I suggest that we take a vote on it? Is it too early to do that?
Would you like to make a motion?
I make a motion that we vote to recommend to the council, thank you, Jerry, that we support SB 252.
And would you want to send this resolution as a sample resolution to them as part of that?
Oh, and we want to,
Yeah, so it might, can I help
Sign it.
you out?
Yeah, please help us out.
So this would be a motion to recommend council adopt the resolution supporting SB, whatever,
252.
thank you,
252.
252.
Thank you, Carrie. Do I need to say it?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. So now I ask for more comment. Does anyone have comment? This part I always forget. You're training me. I'm getting there 2 years later. Any further comments on the motion on the table? Sonali, I know you want to.
I agree with the motion, so I'm going to vote for it. And I just want to bring to attention that I think in conversations like this, it's important to bring awareness and conversation to how we transition the workers who are part of the fossil fuel industry, not just divesting. That's my comment.
Thank you so much for that comment. Anyone else? All right, so now I can call for a vote.
Okay, and so we do need to do this by roll call. Emmett Hopkins,
I vote yes.
Alex Goodman,
Yes.
Dina Allen. Absent. Oh, yes, sorry, she had to leave. Joshua is also absent. Kenna Lee,
Yes.
Lisa Pierce,
Yes.
Sonali Sikand,
Yes.
Debbie Burns,
Yes.
Zeno, can you pronounce your last name?
Zeno, I think. Yes.
Thank you. Ambrosia Thompson
Yes.
and Sandra Mauer.
Yes.
The motion passes. I will get you the count on that one, Kenna, for the minutes.
Yeah. Anyone opposed?
Well, we did a roll vote, so everyone who
see,
had
I
a
didn't
vote
have
already
to.
voted.
You know, you're training me wrong. Phew. Okay. Thank you all, and I will let Woody know, and I'm sure he thanks you all as well. Okay, so we are going to roll this train in on time or even early to make up for having taken longer last couple of meetings. We have chair reports, and just want to remind you all, you should have received an email about the ethics training. And it looks like spam when it first arrives, but then you see the email from Carrie saying it's not spam. So please do the ethics training if you are a voting member of this committee. Is there a deadline for that, Carrie?
I believe once you log into Vector Solution, it tells you what the deadline is.
Okay,
So it will be in there.
Jerry,
For those of you who haven't done it before, don't go too fast.
what happens?
You must spend 2 hours.
Oh, okay.
90 minutes, whatever.
I thought it was an hour.
Whatever it is, if you go through too fast, they give you a whole nother lesson.
You get extra bonus content. Go ahead, Lisa.
For those of you who didn't hear Jerry's comment, he said when you take the ethics training, Don't go too fast. Use the whole time. Otherwise it won't count, correct?
No,
It- It
Otherwise you'll have to do something different.
How do you know that, Gary?
I've taken the class many times.
Got it. Okay, so we will multitask while we are taking the training, and also I'll be trained on ethics. I also want to just acknowledge and thank everyone for making space and making time and waving extra and getting my attention and helping other people get my attention. That was lovely, and I appreciate you guys. And I'm thinking maybe next time I'll try sitting on the corner. Oh, and Ambrosia, see, there's your hand. Go ahead.
I just wanted to share that when I tried to do the proceed through it, the first screen gave me somebody else's email address, so I didn't proceed. I can't remember what it was, but it's a Gmail account. So I kind of just stopped, and yeah, that's where
If
I'm at.
anyone else, thank you, Ambrosia. So I will let Carrie Vasquez at City Hall know. She's the person assigning the training. And so she'll probably send you a new link, Ambrosia. If anyone else has this problem as well, please just let us know and we'll make sure.
Like, let you personally know.
Yeah, you can let me know.
Okay.
I'm logged in and it says it's due April 30th.
Perfect.
So do your homework.
Thank you. Any other questions about the ethics training or comments? All right. That's really all. We are getting email public comment, a lot of questions about the electrification survey and are you taking our gas stoves away? And so it's a little confusing of where, and I thought maybe we could just talk about it now, like how that process goes, like that stuff comes in via email. Do you guys then send it to everyone, or
So
am I supposed to be doing
sure.
that?
So when a comment comes in via email to the climate action at Sebastopol email, the city of Sebastopol email, it actually automatically goes to Kenna and Joshua as the co-chairs. And it actually goes in, not in my inbox, it goes into a different folder. Otherwise, I would just respond to it and I would not notice that and I know Joshua generally likes to respond or have you or him respond. So I don't monitor that every day, and I'm just looking at it now, and there's like 10 emails since last Friday that I have not seen. If you guys don't feel comfortable responding to an email, and I know there's been like one or so where you needed some technical assistance or assistance in that, please if you can just forward it to me directly, that would be helpful.
Yes, and that's fine. It's more like the wishes of the group. Like when there's public comment for the committee, I want to make sure, I don't know if I'm supposed to be forwarding that to every member of the committee or how, like
If you
what
let
people
me
want.
know, then I can forward it to the committee.
Okay.
And so then, like when we have, at the beginning of the meeting, we have comments for items not on the agenda.
Yes.
That's where I would generally know we received 2 emails and I've forwarded some that come to me directly, just, from Rob,
Okay.
Kowalski and frequent commenters. I forward it to the committee. And then at the beginning of the meeting for comments not on the agenda, I let you know that we received comments and that they have been forwarded to you as members of the committee. We do not read them at the meeting though.
Okay, perfect. Sandy?
I would like to receive these comments. I don't think I've received any of these. So I would really like to be
Sure.
kept informed.
Yeah,
what
so you
people
are now
writing
on-
to the Climate Action Committee.
Right.
please.
So I have an email list when I send something to the Climate Action Committee. Did you get the last
I haven't
agenda?
received hardly anything. So I
Okay.
received the agenda.
Okay,
but I
so then
haven't
you're
received
on
any
the
comments,
list.
yeah.
And yeah, so we have it's like a city email for climate action stuff. Like a lot of times it's questions about the compost when the compost stuff is coming up. But we've gotten some on the electrification. It sounds like, or where there are comments more. And so I'll work with Kenneth to get those distributed to folks.
Thank you.
Lisa?
Yeah, I'd be curious to see the comments too and maybe help respond to them if any help is needed. So far, we've only seen one comment that was emailed to us. I think that's the case.
Yeah, so I apologize for not realizing that was not a kind of weirdly automated. I know it goes to a number, this one email goes to a group of people, like a whole different people. And then half the time I respond to things and Joshua already did, or, it's not a very smooth process.
Right.
But-
It goes to the chair, two chairs and staff. So we keep
and
it for record
Diana, I
retention.
think also.
No, I don't
Oh.
think so.
Because she responds sometimes. So, yeah, maybe we can clarify, but at any rate, there will be public comment coming your way. It sounds like into your inbox, and that will be marked public comment in some way for them to know when they get it. Carrie?
Yeah, we can go through them. Now, I will say, I generally don't, if someone has questions, I would just respond. I don't consider questions a
Comment.
public comment.
Okay.
If it looks like it's a public comment, I'm kind of looking through them, trying to see
Yeah.
what you're talking about. So there's a question, what's the ultimate reason for the survey? Trying to understand the temperature in town for initiatives such as banning gas appliances. Well, to me, that's a question, not a comment. He's not.
Right, there was a question in the
proposing
ones,
any-
but then there's someone who sent a long thing about gas stoves and
Okay, so then that would be a comment, and we'll forward that
And
to
we'll
the
forward
committee.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
Why would you just?
That's exactly how I do. Well, if it comes in and it's something not on an agenda, I would just forward it to any of my committees and then note in the section of items not on the agenda that we had some comments come in, they've been distributed to members. Yep.
go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing the questions and the comments if possible.
So is there anything about, for example, these emails will come to the committee members. And I know sometimes Carrie will catch some of these and alert Joshua and I, like, this is a media inquiry, don't answer without checking in with me. Or, that some of the questions are just questions and we answer them. And then some of them she wants to advise us on. So when things get forwarded to the whole committee, if there's something that someone on the committee knew more about or wanted to talk to the person, like, kind of what's the protocol around they're getting these public comments, and maybe, Lisa's doing the
Sure. So
survey,
something
yeah.
like the elected. So the reason we handle it this way, I just want to remind people, is because of the Brown Act. And we can't have more than a quorum of the members involved with an activity that isn't part of your meetings. And so that's why we're doing this. And it is not to be secretive. It's actually to make sure we comply with the Brown Act. So that if there is something, the comments get forwarded to the committee. So you have them all, they get made part of the public record, which is why city staff is on the email for it, because we retain those emails and public comments. If there is something where, it's a compost question and Dina's dealing with the compost, say, or Lisa's dealing with the electrification survey, we can certainly loop in that one lead. We just need to be careful, because if it's a question that we can't answer without them, we can certainly loop that person in. And that's still only going to be 3 members of the committee, because it's the 2 chairs and Diana. And I'll check on that but it's still going to be less than a quorum. So that's okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Zeno. And then Lisa.
Yeah, I think what we need is just a document for every meeting at the beginning in part of the meeting package that contains all the correspondence. And I think it's not good to separate questions from comments, because it's very informative what people ask questions about. Yeah, so I would like to have every communication that is sent to that email address be part of the public record and made available as part of the meeting package.
So we can.
So Zena,
yeah.
I think that's fine, but people are asking questions like, do I need a truck to pick up compost? And I don't know if that really makes sense to forward to the committee. We're just asking the questions. I mean, answering those very simple questions. So we're using our judgment, yes, but people are asking, how do I sign up for a community garden plot? I'm not sure how that communication. I mean, we just answered as staff so that they can do that. I mean, I can do it. I'm not sure if it
Right,
makes
no,
sense to use staff
understand.
time to
I understand.
compile those
I understand.
comments when they're just
Right.
questions.
But still, if you have a number of questions about the same topic, it would be alerting us to somewhat of a lacuna in the communication around that topic. So it's informative to know what people ask, what questions people ask. And
Yeah,
these
and-
questions probably are part of the public record, right? So there may be practice around this. I think some city councils have a list of questions that came in that some people would go and they speak here in person, but other people send emails. So I feel we have to be very generous with that and make all these comments and questions available.
And Lisa, you had something?
I hadn't really thought about that whole aspect that Carrie just said, and it makes total sense. So I don't know.
So I think when Joshua's back in town and I see that he and I can meet with Carrie and come up with what feels like a good process that, you guys are getting the information that you need. And, I think historically when we've been getting questions, we come to the group and say like, oh, we got a lot of questions about this, but we can try to kind of formalize that process a little bit of, how we're discerning what's coming in to the whole group and then how that gets filed. And Sandy and then Jerry.
When someone writes to the council, they send an email to city council at, whatever address, and then everybody gets a copy of it. So I don't quite understand how the Brown Act why that would be different for this committee compared to the council.
So the reason this is a little different is staffing, frankly. So the committee wanted to be engaged somehow and with answering questions. So there's a lot of projects that this group does that don't have a lot of staff interaction because we don't have staff dedicated to this. This is, and so like the questions, Kenna and others have been fielding questions like, hey, I'm excited to participate in the compost. Can I use my little truck or does it need to be shoveled into containers? That's stuff that when Mary gets those questions, she does not send those to council. We just answer those questions. So I want to separate out the questions and the interactions with the public on those, which from comments. I send all comments that are related to Climate Action Committee to the Climate Action Committee. So that is still happening. We don't get very many comments compared to council, especially for things that aren't on the agenda. And the same with the Planning Commission. John and I get thousands of emails a week asking questions about planning stuff. We answer those questions. That's part of our job. If someone has a comment on something, then we forward it to the appropriate body, whether it's Design Review Board, Climate Action, Public Art Committee, or Planning Commission, or City Council. So that's kind of how that works. So this is a little, like I said, this is a little different because there's a lot of, if people just have general questions, how do I join the Zoom meeting? Well, those are just things that we answer without sharing with the committee to fill everyone's inbox.
Lisa?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think sometimes comments have a question mark at the end and it's still a comment. That's what I meant by, it would be good to see those too. Thanks.
Yeah. And there are definitely comments that are phrased as questions but they're clearly comments. And I think we can discern. There's a difference between a logistics question and a comments question. Jerry, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, it won't take very long. I was just going to go back to the original point about the comments and the electrification, and I read several of the ones that came in. Basically, the committee took a conservative approach, not a very liberal approach on handling this. Instead of saying we have an all electric code, we said we found ways to make it easier for people to electrify. And what we adopted was what the state now has put in place. And in fact, the regulations that we were following before that we hadn't adopted. So at a practical level, we just started enforcing those things that we were doing before and stating so people understood that. Also, that the state has been moving towards all electrification, and we don't want our community to be behind and have to catch up last minute. So we're doing this proactively to make it easier for people, not to force people, but just make it possible for them. And I think that's the kind of response that we want to send forward.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so I'm going to move on to next agenda. So the library update is on the next agenda. Anything else that will be planned for next agenda? Does Energy want to bring one more? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to add the EV charging, on-street charging proposal.
Great, exciting. Anything else? This will be for the May 9th agenda.
Preliminary results of the survey.
Preliminary results of the survey.
Preliminary results of the survey.
Great. Anything else? And feel free to email Joshua and I anytime between now and a week before the next meeting. The next meeting is for May 9th. Just reviewing the action items very quickly. I'm going to make sure I get the list of working group members to Carrie. Staff will move forward this past resolution. Everyone needs to do their ethics training, and I will follow up with Diana and email Apple Blossom information to the group. Thank you all. And the meeting is adjourned until our next regular meeting of May 9th at 3 p.m.
Thank you, Kenna.
Thank you.
Bye, Kenna. Thank you.
So anybody here who wants to sign up for the tabling?